All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second Tech Talk. This will be hosted by Pat Rucker from Palo Alto Networks. Pat Rucker is a named account manager. He's joined by his coworker Jermaine Bethune, who's a system engineer at Palo Alto Networks, as well as Joe Kim, who is the CTO and EVP of engineering at Squadra Solutions. Thank you so much to the three of you for joining us, and without further ado, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone who made today possible, as well as Palo Alto Networks Early Talent Recruiting Programs Organization for their sponsorship. And my name's Pat Rucker. I've got the pleasure to moderate Behind the Mask 2.0. We're gonna learn about the career paths, the daily life, and best practices, as well as some of the great stories and lessons that Joe and Jermaine have learned over the last couple decades in the world of IT and cyber. So I'd like to start with Joe. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, Joe.
All right. You know what? Let's throw it over to Jermaine. Jermaine.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for letting me participate in this Capture the Flag. It's really, really inspiring to see, a lot of good students out there doing some creative stuff. Just a little bit about myself. As Pat mentioned, I'm a system engineer with Palo Alto Networks. I kind of started my career. I've been a security professional for about 16 years, and I started off in a large public utility, working in their cybersecurity force. And then from there, I've had experience working for oil and gas refineries, and as well as financial institutions. And now I'm here at Palo, and basically my primary responsibility is to design solutions and help solve problems for local, state, local government for New Jersey, and it's a lot of fun. And that's pretty much kind of how I came to this job. Just having a lot of experience in different different environments. Help me. It helps me every day in this particular role here at Palo Alto.
All right.
Great. That's awesome. Joe, are you ready to come off of mute yet? Oh, we must be having some technical difficulties there with Joe. So, Jermaine, how about taking us from your college days at the University of Miami, and maybe talk a little bit about your career path and how you got started in technology and security.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I attended University of Miami, go Canes. And while there, I majored in computer information systems, and it was actually a major that was in the business school. So the cool thing about the major was that I was able to get some of those engineering classes, but also get a good sense of business acumen. Taking your finance, economics classes, etc. And then from there, when we're nearing graduation, we had a career center that taught us basically how to interview, how to format our resumes, etc. And I actually went to, and I remember this the other day, I had my first suit, a suit that I just bought off the rack. I went to the career fair that we had for just soon to be graduates, and went to walk through all the different kiosks of the different companies. And that was actually the first day I actually learned how to tie a tie. I actually looked at a YouTube video how to tie a tie, and I started doing interviews, and essentially that was really what got my first job out of college. And so the reason why I say that story is because I'm sure NJIT has a career center, and everybody else who's looking at this around the world has a career center. That's very important to help you. They play an important role in helping you. Can help secure a position. So, I kind of remember that, and then from there, like I said, I started at a public utility, and I kind of earn my way through getting the experience that I have today.
So were you a cyber practitioner right off the bat, or did you just start off as an IT infrastructure, as a generalist? Talk to
Yeah,
us a
yeah,
little bit about that.
sure. So, as part of my, major, we got exposed to, different aspects. It wasn't specifically cybersecurity. Cybersecurity was one aspect of that, but I was just a general IT practitioner. We also did programming, et cetera. So when I had my first career out of college, at first it was just a IT generalist, learning those fundamentals, how networks work, how, just fundamental electronics, that kind of stuff. And then kind of it just started with, we had a project at my first job where they needed someone who was, would dive into cybersecurity. And that's basically how I started. It was almost by luck and serendipitous action. I really didn't necessarily seek it out, but once I was exposed to it, I started, I loved it, and went on from there.
That's really cool. Um, let's give Joe another shot. I know we've been messaging each other. He's got some technical difficulties. Joe, are you able to talk yet? Doesn't sound like it. And we'll work on that. In the meantime, Jermaine, um, if you were to do it all over again, knowing what you know now today, and you were aspiring to be a cybersecurity practitioner, what would some of your recommendations be for the audience? I mean, should they focus completely on technical? Are there other soft skills that are valuable in your career that you would suggest investing in, or what would your advice be?
Well, I think the first thing is to harbor that sense of curiosity, right? Curiosity and everything that you do. I think also one of the things I would have done more early in my career is read widely, not just technical stuff, but fiction, anything that you can get your hands on. Because one of the things I learned when it comes to being a cybersecurity professional is that you have to have a lot of knowledge about different types of things, and then be able to problem solve. And when you expose yourself to subject matter outside of cybersecurity, or any outside of any kind of technical subjects, that you have the ability to use that information to help solve problems. I think those that drive for curiosity and reading widely, I think would be very beneficial for someone at this stage in their career.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I know when I was listening to Mike Garrity speak earlier today in the keynote, one of the things he talked about was that the NJCCIC actually embraces mistakes. You're not going to get fired for it. Mistakes are just part of the learning process. I know that you invest a lot in home labs and things like that. Talk about maybe being able to learn from your mistakes, and how important that is to look at it as a learning experience, and not necessarily a death blow.
Excuse me, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but it seems like we're having a problem with Pat's screen share. Would you be able to reshare your screen?
Sure.
Yeah, it seems
Let's
like
let me stop it. Okay. Let's try again.
I think the issue
How
is
about
if
now?
it's not your active application. If you've minimized it, then it won't show up.
Are you able to see my screen now?
Not yet.
All right. So Jermaine, where were we?
We were talking about home labs. So in terms of home labs, right? So you gotta this day and age, right? There's tons of stuff available on eBay and obviously YouTube videos, but the good thing about being able to have access to a lot of different technologies you can create. As Pat
Sorry, it
mentioned.
looks like we're having some technical difficulties here.
You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't see the presentation, but it seems like you guys are having a great conversation even without the presentation.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can, Pat.
Yes. So I think Pat has disconnected, and Pat is back. Yeah, so deep apologies for all of the technical difficulties, but Pat, are you able to hear us?
Hear you, Logan. I don't know. It's anybody from Palo Alto. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you
Jermaine?
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, not sure what happened. I got booted out. Now we're back in.
All right, let's pick up where we left off.
Yeah. Joe, are you still not able to talk? Not sure what's happening here. Joe's having audio issues.
It just looks like you and Jermaine seem okay. I don't know what
Okay.
happened.
Yeah, Joe's getting a message saying it says he needs to push to talk. I'm not sure what that means.
Shreya,
Yeah,
if you're there, any idea?
Yeah, so push to talk is a Discord setting where you have to press a key in order to talk. I'm not sure why Joe defaulted to that, but I believe the key would be either the spacebar or the escape keyboard. But I just sent Joe instructions on how to use voice activity.
Hey, can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, awesome, Joe. It's so great to be able to hear you.
Yes.
I closed everything, opened everything back up, and it just kept on saying you push to talk. So not sure what happened there. Sorry about that.
All
Yeah,
right, well,
Joe.
it's
Well,
great to have you.
yeah, glad we finally got you on. So, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I know you've got a real interesting story on kind of how you got started in cybersecurity. So,
Sure.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go right into that story on kind of how you got started, at least what you're
Right.
allowed to talk about.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm currently the CTO and founder for Squadra Solutions, we're a technology provider for the federal government as well as Fortune 500s. We currently provide network enterprise and cybersecurity architecture. A lot of it is around infrastructure build out. Some of it is around post-breach remediations and whatnot. So we're currently working with technologies such as Palo Alto Networks to help secure those type of environments. I actually got started in IT back, gosh, I'm 40 something now, but back in the early mid 80s, I asked my father for a Nintendo when Nintendo first came out. He actually came back with a 286 computer, and then threw me in a programming school to learn basic COBOL, Pascal, and whatnot. So I kind of learned and picked up Windows and DOS and all these various technologies kind of on my own. And then eventually in high school, I decided to take a vocational school. I live in Northern Virginia, and there's a school called Edison High School that provides vocational training similar to other high schools, STEM schools, and whatnot. And I took first a networking course there. And around the first or second quarter, I want to say it was the second quarter, my teacher actually, left, and she was like, "Hey, I'm kind of quitting, and I have a new job." And as a student, that was kind of shocking to me. And I found out that she took an IT job while she was teaching. And then on my second year, I was also taking another technology course. This was for a Microsoft course, and same thing happened where my teacher kind of left. So I was like, at that point, I was like, wow, IT probably is a really interesting career. And during that time, again, kind of self-taught myself networking and whatnot. And then around senior year, I got a knock on my door from a 3-letter agency from where the previous speaker was working at. And they kind of came and took my computers at the time because I kind of, being an adolescent in high school, kind of got into trouble breaking into computers that I shouldn't have. And this is, again, way before the word cybersecurity even existed. So kind of got into that. And then after high school, I immediately started to, work on a certification. So at the time, it was a Microsoft certification called MCSE. It's still around. And after getting my Microsoft certification, I started working right away at a few other companies, technology companies, and then kind of, learned on the job around networking and cybersecurity and whatnot, and kind of, I'm here today now providing technology solutions for some of those agencies that I got into trouble with, as well as some of the large organizations. So that's kind of my quick and brief story on how I got into technology. I try to stay ahead by reading as much as possible, whether it's cybersecurity news or every time I interact with a new customer, whether it's a federal agency or an enterprise customer, they always have different perspectives. Some of them are going through compliance needs. Some of them are going through re-architecture. Some of them are going through re-architecture designs because of a cybersecurity incident. So I try to support all those type of environments. But again, glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
That's really cool. Well, it sounds like you really started out on the technical side, and just judging by your title and what I know about you, there's probably other things that you had to build in your skill set in terms of communications and business acumen. And how did you do that? And what would you recommend to the people that are here listening today that that eventually want to elevate into maybe a CTO role or some other C-suite position?
Absolutely. I think speaking, is a big part of it, right? And a lot of times people just aren't comfortable with public speaking, and there's programs like Toastmasters or just, it's just really kind of, for me, I always tell my engineers and, stay uncomfortable, right? Stay hungry and do things that make you uncomfortable. And initially for me, it was about public speaking. And a lot of times if you're in technology, you have to know how to configure the specific technologies, but also have to explain that maybe to a management or a non-technical staff, or even to a new end customer, to say, okay, here's a new way of doing things. And a lot of that just comes with practice, but developing the soft side skills is really important to kind of move ahead in that career. Another thing that I would recommend is finding a mentor, in the industry. I do a lot of mentorships for local schools in my district, similar to the programs that developed here, where getting to know people in the industry, and you'll actually find out a lot of people are willing to help. I get LinkedIn reached outs all the time randomly on people like, hey, how do you, how do you get to where you are right now, or how did you get into this particular certification, or this and that. So I think, always kind of staying hungry and being uncomfortable, it kind of has helped me stay ahead in the industry.
Yeah, I know in the 30 something years that I've been in the industry, one thing I can say is, I've never really had to look for a job. I've always been able to leverage my network, and people have always, that's how I found jobs. It wasn't necessarily on a job board or something like that. So developing those personal relationships can really be key. So one of the questions I have, with you starting really technical and being so busy with a lot of these business things, I mean, how do you still keep yourself sharp from a technical perspective, at least to know enough about the technologies out there that you can help these large government organizations as well as these Fortune 500s stay ahead of the bad guys?
Sure. So in IT, I always consider it kind of like an open book industry, right? There's, especially if you're starting out, there's, an unlimited amount of material that you can self-consume. So on the government side, I'll give you an example, right? There's bodies such as NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technologies, and they have tons of reference architectures that talk about how do you, design a system, how do you design a network, how do you harden a Windows, system, how do you harden a browser. There's newer guidance and publications such as how do you apply things like zero trust, how do you develop mobile applications and whatnot. So there's tons of reading material that's available, and at the same time, a lot of manufacturers also make public training readily available. So like Palo Alto, for example, they have a cybersecurity training program and a website that anyone can go self-register for free called Beacon. And if you go there, they'll give you like an intro to cybersecurity courses, as well as various different technologies, teaching you about the current threats in the landscape, whether it's in the cloud side or secure supply chain, or even at the endpoint, and then how they solve those problems with various different technologies. So, as I tell my sales engineers and my sales guys, being in technology sales, you really just have to stay a couple pages ahead of your customers, and that's really by doing your research, looking at again on the federal side, looking at executive orders that are coming down, working with agencies such as CISA or NIST to fully understand what are the requirements, how do we shape some of the the technology, and then how do we again apply that to a specific environment. How you apply cybersecurity or even network or any technology is going to vary from either agency to agency or even from customer to customer, and it's really taking that technical know-how and how do you apply that to the specific mission and business needs. So for me, it's really just kind of goes back to reading, and then also leveraging a lot of the resources, whether it's a virtual lab or a loaner equipment or even like a test environment that you can go sign up as a subscription and then kind of consume.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know when I was coaching, my philosophy was the best learning experience is it's got to be a safe environment. It's got to be an environment where people feel that they can make mistakes and learn. And I can't think of a better way than a virtual lab. Glad to hear that you mentioned some of those complimentary trainings. I had somebody that I'm mentoring right now that wants to get into software sales, works at Best Buy, and was looking at spending thousands of dollars on a certain Microsoft certification. And I basically came back to him and said, Microsoft is a huge partner with a lot of these companies, and basically was able to tell them, hey, Did you know that you guys are a Google partner and that you could get Google Cloud certified just by working at Best Buy because you're in that partner program? So I think it's always important. A lot of the universities out there have, agreements with Google and Microsoft, and there might be some things that you can do early on in your career to get some of those certifications, without having to pay for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, the whole industry, went from kind of paid certification and paid training to really making it available. Again, back when I started, I had to literally go buy used Cisco routers and used Cisco switches off of like eBay. And now, all that can be consumed virtually from a laptop or even in a cloud instance where you literally don't need any gear, any licensing to get started on these programs. And a lot of the manufacturers even are offering, 30-day or extended trial licenses to kind of get your hands dirty. And this is even for professionals that have been in industry for 20 plus years. When we're learning a new technology, some of it is consumed through hands-on, some of it is consumed through, PowerPoints and video training and CVTs and whatnot. So a lot of information available.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I have a question for Jermaine. One of the things you hear about a lot of times is, people go to conferences to learn, but I think there can be some value in just the networking. Jermaine, could you talk a little bit about, maybe some of the various companies that you've been with where you've gone to technical boot camps and just the relationships that you've developed with your peers that maybe you've been able to use when you need somebody to help you with a certain problem. I know, for example, within Palo Alto, it's not just the engineering talent that Jermaine has, but all the resources that you have available to you, including partners like Joe that you can reach out to if you have a specific question and say, hey, have you ever run into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to using your network, it's probably not just for a career advancement, but just being humble and realize you don't know everything, right? So yeah, I mean, those conferences are very valuable in the sense that you're able to get exposure to how other people do things. And a lot of times I kind of use it as my secret weapon and kind of deploy it as my Swiss Army knife, because if, one thing based on my experience, if I try something, I ask someone else how they did it, I add that tool to my arsenal. It just helps, allow you to grow as a security professional when you're humble enough to say, I don't know everything, and you can go to your colleagues and ask them, questions of how they would handle certain situations.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, Sierra, do we have any questions out there from the audience for either Joe or Jermaine?
Yeah, so one question we had from the audience, I think this might have been directed to Joe. On Discord, Dissonance is asking, Toastmasters comes with a hefty price tag. How much value do you believe that Toastmasters provides?
It kind of forces you to kind of it's almost like I don't know, Alcohol Anonymous, right? It kind of forces you to kind of participate. So, even if it's not in a, that type of setting, I think there's still other opportunities to kind of, do presentations. When I hire sales engineers, I typically ask them, okay, talk about any particular subject, whether it's about cars or even, technology, if you're coming from a technology background, and explain this particular, tool or technology to me. And then through that, I kind of force them to go through, various types of presentations. And then if they're having challenges, then we'll kind of walk through and just kind of force them to keep repeating it over and over and over. And same thing with my sales team. I have them kind of do the elevator pitch, every week in terms of saying, okay, hey, hear my pitch or hear my, peers' pitches on how do we position a particular technology or a particular solution, and how do we kind of understand that. So it's really comes with just practice and kind of making sure you're forcing yourself to kind of be in that position.
Yeah, and I think practice is definitely key. And I think one of the things is, with today, we've got so much technology out there. A friend of mine, Matt Horace, he's the chief security officer for the Mayo Clinic. And he is one of the most amazing speakers, motivational speakers that I've ever seen. And I'm like, Matt, how the heck are you so good? He's like, Pat, it's practice. He's like, you have an iPad, you have an iPhone. He goes, when I'm going to give a speech, I'll practice it and I'll listen to it over and over again. I'll look at myself, I'll film myself until I get it down to where I don't have to look at speaker notes or any of that stuff, and I'm comfortable, with what I need to say.
I would just add to that, one of the things I always like to do is kind of take a napkin and try to explain a sophisticated concept to like your mom or your parents or something. It just helps to kind of reiterate, do I really know what I'm talking about? Do I really know the concepts, down pat? And then that just helps when you present it to folks that, you know the concept so well, you can explain it on a white napkin, right? So I think that's very important skill to have.
Yeah, that makes great sense. I always say the final sort of nirvana for learning is when you can teach it to someone else, whether it's a sport or cybersecurity or whatever, when you can break it down into a simple process that a beginner can understand it actually helps you learn at a higher level.
Wow, great. Yeah, so following up on that question, someone in the chat had also asked about local groups that are Toastmaster-like, but are specifically hacker associations. They're generally free, but have participation requirements. So are any of you aware of any hacker associations that also help with developing these sort of skills?
This is Joe. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I do know I used to participate in B-Side and a few other ones that's local to here, but I don't have any off the top of my head. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure we can probably take that as a kind of a follow-up.
Yeah, definitely. So one question I actually had is a lot of you mentioned staying up to date on the news and being involved with resources. So I was wondering, what sources do you personally use to stay up to date with hacker news, especially with fake news and all? It's so important to make sure you have genuine, good sources.
So I'll start, and I'm not as technical as Jermaine or Joe, but one of the things Mike Garrity talked earlier about, the NJCCIC. I mean, I get news from them on a daily basis, weekly basis. CISA is another one, because I'm always concerned about geopolitical situation and how it might affect my customers in state and local government. So those are two places that I get a lot of news from. But just in general, I also Accentra is another good one. I listen to a lot of the big cybersecurity players out there, and I actually follow them. Whether it's on LinkedIn or other resources, and see what they're seeing, what's top of mind for their customers.
Yeah, this is Joe. For me, the one that I kind of go to, there's actually a website called The Hacker News. So that's a pretty good one. There's another one, Dark Reading, that I like reading. It. They've been around for a while. At the higher executive level, there's websites like CSO Online where they try to consolidate some information. And then if you go to Google and you start, if you start searching for cybersecurity news and whatnot, it'll do a good job of just kind of recommending additional sources.
Yeah, I was going to say one other one that I use is Unit 42, which is a division of Palo Alto that has 200 threat researchers worldwide. I get a lot of my information from there as well.
Yep, absolutely. And again, as Pat mentioned, CISA, or Homeland Security's cybersecurity infrastructure security agency, has subscriptions where you can subscribe to, and they'll give you news on latest vulnerabilities. They'll have bulletins out on vulnerabilities that are out. They'll have bulletins specific to like even operational technology and whatnot. So there's a lot of public resources from NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology as well. And all these are free subscription based that they'll just push right out. And these are the same type of information that executives as well as practitioners are also subscribing to and consuming as well.
Wow, well, thanks for all the list of resources. I did hear about NIST from one cybersecurity class I took last semester, and I'll definitely look into the other sources. We have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. So here's one more question from the audience. It's from TBOI on YouTube, and he's saying, "Hello, Joe. Are there any training programs or internship opportunities for hands-on experience?"
So again, Palo is a technology that I've probably used for, 11, 12 years now. They have a website. It's beacon.paloaltonetworks.com, I believe. They'll give you a lot of training material there. There's also another website where I think it's like $50 for 6-month access to their virtual lab. So you can get access to a virtual Palo Alto firewall with their official training courses to get true hands-on experience on the platform. Another way to get hands-on experience on like a firewall platform, for example, is if you whip out a credit card and go to Amazon or Azure, you can actually consume their firewall and have a whole lab setup environment there as well, and it'll probably cost you $10-15 a month. But I really like I can't remember the website. I'll have to come back to. I think it's like Net Labs or something like that. But it's part of Palo Alto's training academy where, again, they give you the entire courseware, and then they give you 6-month access to a virtual lab. So all you need access is to internet and a browser.
Yeah, and I'll just add too that Palo has a program called LEAP program, which is geared towards recent graduates. It's a 2-year program. It's very strong. And they also have a summer internship program, which is a 12-week program. It's got one-on-one mentoring, and you get exposure and support from executives. So what Joe talked about earlier about that mentoring type of thing. And then there's, events and, it's really a good program. And there's a lot of programs out there, internships.
All right, sounds good. And we have another question from the audience, and it's from John the Ripoff, and they're asking, they're asking, would it be helpful to learn physical firewall systems as well, like Cisco ASA?
Absolutely. And again, anytime you can get any hands-on, whether it's any platform vendor, whether it's Cisco, Juniper, Palo Alto, Fortinet, there's so many vendors. The physical firewall, the challenge there is there's a higher cost of entry, right? You're going to have to get something, either used, and if you buy it new, it's going to be several thousands of dollars at a minimum. And essentially, the code base is going to be very similar. So if you're trying to get hands-on, it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to have a physical device unless you really want to feel touch and hear a loud fan appliance in your lab or whatnot. So if you can get access to one, whether it's through donation or whatnot, I think physical definitely helps. But with documentation, you can see what all these physical appliances look like, and the main thing is you want to get access to the either the operating system, whether it's in the UI or the CLI or the command line. So, and again, you can get that through virtual appliances. Even products like Cisco, they have virtual firewalls that do exactly what the physical firewalls do. There's some limitations, small limitations around, performance or either things like link aggregation where you're bundling multiple links. But at the gist of it, if the goal is to learn the technology, I think, going the virtual route is probably the easiest. And again, leveraging cloud lab solutions so you don't have to spin up massive instances and pay for licenses and whatnot. The other thing I want to kind of warn about is if you purchase equipment off of like eBay or some of these like auction sites, a lot of the security equipments, they work on subscriptions, and if they don't have valid support, you may not be able to get access to the latest code base or the latest support or the latest content updates. So when when I was like learning routers, for example, you know, those typically they don't matter if you have if you have the latest firmware. You're learning routing protocols and you're learning basic, you know, TCP/IP. But when you're learning like cybersecurity appliances, those things typically require some type of cloud connectivity or some type of signatures, and all those are tied to content updates, which are then tied to, you know, support.
Yeah, Joe, that's great advice for the audience. I was gonna bring up the same thing. I mean, you can certainly go out there and buy switches and routers and cheap servers and build your own environment and play around. But yeah, the security products can be a little bit tougher because they do require those subscriptions. So if you are going to invest in something like that, you know, buyer beware. You want to make sure that you're, you know, that you're also getting subscriptions with it. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything.
You're gonna get a big doorstop.
Yeah.
And again, you know, for the team here that's doing CTFs, right? You know, playing around with things like you know, offensive securities, you know, product suites, and then using that against security products that are in the industry. That's something that I do all the time. And even for, you know, demonstrations when I'm demoing to a large enterprise customer, let's say like an endpoint solution, like an endpoint detection response solution, I may use something like a Kali Linux, and then start throwing, you know, exploits against a backend system that may be protected by a firewall, as well as like an endpoint solution, and then I'll start turning things on and off to kind of just show you and show the customer how those things are actually providing protection. So there's a tons of, you know, open source stuff that you can leverage as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jermaine, Joe, Pat, for sharing with us your Tech Talk Behind the Mask 2.0. It was very, very educational. We really appreciated you sharing your personal and professional experience with us. And I believe the flag will be shown on screen in just a few minutes. So if you're an attendee listening in, please sit tight and we'll be sharing the flag.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yep. Bye.
All right, now the flag is being shared, so make sure you note it down, maybe take a screenshot, and then in a while we'll get ready for our next Tech Talk.